Well, welcome everyone to our second PL EngRes All Hands meeting on March 3rd. As a reminder, the PL EngRes team is one of the many engineering and research teams operating in the wider PL network. We focus mostly on IPFS, libp2p, Filecoin, IPLD, DRAND, multi-formats, and a number of the other projects that Protocol Labs works on. This is a wide and exciting ecosystem, and we have a ton of phenomenal humans who are helping push these efforts forward. Our mission is to scale and unlock new opportunities for IPFS, Filecoin, and libp2p by onboarding the best developers and contributors in the world, driving breakthroughs in protocol utility and capability, and scaling network native research and development across the PL network, which is a lot of things. Really, it breaks down into this high-level strategy where we're focused heavily on ramping amazing talent into the PL network and making it an amazing community for them to build within, and giving everyone the information and knowledge to push these protocols forward. A lot of our time is going towards making IPFS and Filecoin a robust storage and retrieval network, making it seamless to adopt these protocols in both Web 2 and Web 3 contexts. We are ramping up our focus even more on breakthroughs in programmability, scalability, and compute. There's some great updates in today's presentation about the progress being made there so far. And then finally, we spend a good chunk of our time just on maintaining critical network operations and making sure that all of these awesome networks full of amazing projects are continuing to scale safely and securely and at speed. So a lot of work goes into that on a day-to-day basis as well. Something new since our last all hands, we now have a public EngRes Notion where we each one of the different teams within the PL EngRes working group is conveying their work. We're doing weekly sit reps, situation reports on the work that's happening within these teams. So if you're interested in any of the items that you hear in today's presentation, I really recommend you go check this out. We'll stick the Notion link in YouTube description so that you can follow along with the great work that's being done here. And without further ado, I will kick it over to each of the kind of core protocol stewards to talk a little bit more about KPIs and highlights happening in their area, starting with IPFS. I think we were going to start with metrics around the gateway traffic increase. George or Sid, did one of you want to jump in?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
I'll actually just let George quickly talk about it. George, are you online? I can see George here, but yeah, very quickly while George is getting up to speed, we actually saw almost since November, almost a 2x increase in the amount of traffic that the gateways are actually servicing. And as you can see from the top referrers here, the majority of them are the NFT related entities, galleries and marketplaces and so on and so forth. So it's been an explosion that we expect to continue unabated into 2022. So yeah, it's an amazing number, getting close to 1 billion in requests every particular week, as well as a continuous uptick in the number of unique gateway users, which is actually a very good indicator of the activity that's happening in this particular space. And we actually made a whole bunch of changes that we can that I think we mentioned earlier, which allows us to continue to scale and support the needs going forward. So fantastic effort by the team and great to see this adoption. Thank you.
Awesome, super exciting. And then handing over to Adin for IPFS KPIs.
Yeah, so some things that we track are number of IPFS nodes we encounter in the network, and how long it takes to locate content on IPFS. We've seen sort of a big uptick. We've seen reasonable uptick in the number of IPFS nodes in the network, and content routing speeds for finding stuff has dropped for sort of the P50 case pretty substantially, and this is a result of some work that has gone on the hydras, which we will talk about in a minute. But yeah, within sort of our test environment, working on the real network, 100 milliseconds to find who has your stuff.
Nice improvement.
All right, so we've had a number of releases. Released Go IPFS 0.12 and a number of IPFS desktop and web UI releases. And then some of the work that we did on the Hydra nodes. Some brief background on the Hydras is Protocol Labs runs a set of DHT server nodes that are there to basically help the network out by being reliable and online and fast. They can be a relatively small percentage of the network and still have large impact because we replicate data is replicated through the content providing records are replicated through the network, and you just need to find one of them to find who has your stuff, which is how you manage to see that big drop earlier. We're also hoping to use the Hydra nodes to do content routing, network bridging, so that we can try out new content routing protocols and help them be available through the existing network without requiring everybody to upgrade all at once. Upcoming, we have some work on resource management coming from libp2p and plumbing that through IPFS and making sure we're actually making the best use of the resources we have and make things better for users. Improve our gateway APIs and add some long requested features. And there's tons of these small things within Go IPFS that have been bugging users for a long time that are sort of on our to-do list for March, and some roadmaps. We've had some some challenges in terms of figuring out how to balance all of the work that kind of comes our way, both in terms of supporting and interacting with our community and with the other groups that rely on IPFS and our knowledge of how it works, and building up and hiring and recruiting, and being able to make all the changes for the people who are using IPFS all the time. We're also trying to figure out how to increase the rate of people updating so that the network can evolve faster, which makes protocol development easier, and also for aspects like the DHT and requests like that, where the network evolves together as an organism, that all happens more quickly. Then, of course, there's random centralized points that get in our way, like how you need a Windows signing certificate in order to be able to release releases of IPFS desktop and not have users be really sad. And we handle those too.
Awesome, cool. Thank you for the highlights and update. Going over to libp2p for their update. Max.
Yeah, so it's actually going to be Steve today. Max had a personal thing this evening, but we'll hopefully have Max or Martin for next time. And so a couple of stats here. We've showed these before, but different quantities of libp2p nodes in various networks. IPFS there in the second column, Filecoin on the left, and you can see the kind of the trends for this year so far. If you go to the next slide, one of the metrics that we're paying particular attention to is around nodes that support circuit relay v2 in the IPFS network. This is part of the overall hole punching project Flare effort that you've probably heard talked about for quite a while, and we were intentional about kind of preceding this into previous versions of Go IPFS, so that when we do fully release hole punching and have it turned on by default, there are various relay nodes that we can relay through. And so you see we've got about 1.5 thousand currently. The key remaining work here for this to get leveraged is to implement auto relay in Go libp2p so that Go IPFS client nodes can actually discover these relay nodes. But we've got a lot of them out there, and we're excited to get hole punching turned on later on this year. So if we go to the next slide, for libp2p as a whole, some community things, more information to come on this, but we're planning to do a libp2p summit in mid-April in Paris. Yeah, so that's a lot of effort to make that happen, and it should be a good rallying point. But yeah, more to come, but that'll be significant. And an important conversation we've had of late is working with Matrix to potentially use libp2p for their networking layer. Going back to the hole punching project Flare effort, Rust libp2p now has full hole punching support, and we just got out a blog entry today kind of giving the good overview and explanation of how hole punching works and what we've been doing. So please feel free to check that out. The things that are preventing a full adoption here, why we haven't rolled it out by default, is because we don't have the automated testing that we would want to before we deploy this to the IPFS network. And to make that happen, we need testground up and running well. And so some things that we want to talk about there is we've got an approved dev grant with the Filecoin Foundation with Bloxico, who's done other work with in the Filecoin space. They're going to be able to loan engineers for multiple months ahead to get the infrastructure and framework up to a place where we really can be relying on it for libp2p, Filecoin, and IPFS. And we also have some staffing within PL, or I should say EngRes, dedicated towards this effort. So that'll be key both for getting the infrastructure and framework where it needs to be, and also some of the existing test plans that have been written actually into our CI pipeline, so that there's no excuse for us not to continue to build on these. While that's happening, we've also been getting some basic compatibility testing between golibp2p and rest libp2p happening. So we're really going to be investing in not doing manual efforts for these kind of things, but being able to prove systematically that we're not regressing on performance and we still have compatibility. So that's a key one. There was the golibp2p resource manager that was already mentioned. This has been a many-year outstanding request to have in golibp2p, and we finally bit the bullet to make it happen. That's currently in release candidate phase. We'll be deploying it to some of the infrastructure like the gateways that Protocol Labs runs with, so we can verify that it's not having any unintended consequences, but currently targeting around end of next week to make that a full final release. And a key aspect here is just growing the team. So there's a lot of effort partnering with recruiting to further build out the team.
Great update. Very excited to have hole punching coming sometime soon. Handing over for JS/IPFS.
Hello,
Alex.
everyone. Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Alex, if you haven't met me before. So lots of interesting things have been happening in JS land. So the DHT client support. So JS/IPFS shipped with a DHT client in version 61 and IPFS core 13. And you should totally use it. It's amazing. It's really fun. It works in the browser, which is great, assuming you can dial the nodes that you discover, but you can run queries and do all sorts of useful, interesting things. More on the dialing peers thing later. So what else has happened? Well, our friends at ChainSafe have been doing an awful lot of work to kind of bridge some of the feature gap between JS libp2p and Go libp2p and now Rust libp2p. They are going to be firming up our WebRTC support, which is great for browsers because that means that you can dial nodes, including ones you discovered on the DHT, hopefully, which is going to be great. Also, Circuit Relay v2. We saw the stats earlier of the Go implementation. Hopefully, JS will be catching up with that soon. So what is next? Well, we're going to get a public roadmap so that everyone knows what's coming up. We're going to expand our multiplexer support to include YAMLs and hopefully get some net hole punching. That would be a super awesome thing to have. We are, at the moment, I am full steam ahead on TypeScript conversion of libp2p. It's going very well. Like pretty much everything is done now, apart from the final 10% of the work that takes 90% of the time, which is doing libp2p itself and working out if all the other stuff is kind of validating all the other work, which is really good. It's all coming together. It's very nice. Hoping to get an RC out very quickly. This is a massive effort. And I mean, why are we doing this? Like, why would you do this kind of thing? Well, so, TypeScript is massive in the JS ecosystem. Partners like ChainSafe use it all the time. Why not? I mean, why not exactly? Thanks, Russell. Getting heckled in the comments. It's great. Please do bring it on. Yeah, so we have partners like ChainSafe and many others who use TypeScript pretty much exclusively. So to be able to integrate with them easier is a big win. It's generally a better developer experience. So you get told when you're about to break things. Like JavaScript is pretty much YOLO, which is fun in small doses, but in large systems like libp2p, with lots of moving parts, lots of modules that need to work together, and also very clearly defined interface boundaries between these modules, it would be super useful to know if what you're getting is what you expect. And so that you get a little bit of that with JavaScript, a bit of it linting, but really you need a type system at the scale that we're doing it at. And TypeScript is that. So here we are. Yeah, so you can safely refactor things. Like if you're removing a method or changing a name or an argument, you'll get told. You get inline docs, which is great. So you're typing and you're like, oh, so you get your code completion, but also it shows you what was on the developer's mind when they wrote a bit of code, right? I mean, people who write in type languages like, yeah, whatever, this is amazing, like great, yawn. But actually for JavaScript, this is pretty special. So the code becomes more reliable because you know what you're getting, which is a massive, massive thing. Yes, it's great. It's super exciting, and I can't wait to ship it. And it's going to happen really, really soon. Challenges. We do have challenges. Team capacity. It's basically me, which is a problem. The bus factor is quite high at the moment, but we are hiring. So please do get in contact. We would love to hire some people to work on this. Also, WebRTC support. There's a node module for it. So in order to be able to listen for incoming requests on the server side, we need node support. And there is a WebRTC node module, and it's a bit unloved. The maintainer has done an awesome job, but real life is a thing. Bus factor very high on that one too. That is another challenge that we're having. But yes, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be super good fun. I can't wait to see it. That's it. That's JS IP highlights.
Awesome. And a good reminder that if there are humans who want to come and contribute, there is a lot of space for you, so come join. Passing over to IPLD, warpfork.
Hello, good morning or good evening, wherever you may be. I have a couple of quick highlights from the IPLD universe in almost every one of our languages, excitingly. From the Rust IPLD folks, there have been a bunch of new developments they'd like you to know about where codecs have simply gotten more spec compliant and correct than ever before. They've started using the shared fixtures between our other languages as well, and so much higher confidence, really excited about this. If you're using the FVM systems, you experience this. If you're doing your own Rust development, you also get to pick up those updates. Across all the languages, we're doing some new work now on an IPLD compliance checklist. That might sound a little dry, but it's kind of important. The goal of this is to create more clarity on both what library implementers need to do if they're creating an IPLD implementation, and create more clarity for users on what different libraries can actually provide them. So we're hoping that this will create a lot more leverage for both groups of people. We have a GitHub issue. You can follow the progress on that if you can find links in the slide deck somehow. We've got a bunch of slow but steady progress on the Golang implementations of IPLD. In particular, there are some bindings called the bind node system that are getting easier and easier to use, more features, more stability. Lots of downstream libraries are picking these up and driving these developments as we go. And one exciting news is we've got some more people joining us to help, especially with some of this compliance and cross-linguistic work. Ranger Mo is a character from around the decentralized ecosystems already, who's spending a little more time with us in the future to try to drive some of this along. We're very excited about that. Challenges, of course, are similar to what you're hearing in other groups. And we have a huge amount of stuff we want to do, and a very small number of people to do it, notwithstanding the recent joining that we're very excited about. So people working in this area are sometimes treading water a bit. Please be patient with us. We're trying. We're hoping in the future to address this in part through, yes, we are hiring. Also, it's time to work on governance a little. So if you're interested in figuring out how to get more people involved in collaborating, we're trying, especially in some of the Golang repos, there's some open issues recently about how to build a more inclusive governance structure and get more people the ability to say, yes, let's merge this. So fun times ahead. That's it for IPLD.
Awesome. Exciting to hear about that progress. Handing it over to Ayush for Filecoin.
Filecoin, yeah, tough to go last, but it's a sufficiently interesting time in Filecoin that I think we can compete. Some quick KPIs, total network storage capacity is up to 15.4 exabytes, or ebibytes. That's about a half an ebibyte more than back in January, or back in February when we were just over 15. I'll also call out data stored in Filecoin deals is up to 38 ebibytes. That's up from about 27 a month ago. The cool thing that I wanted to call out there is that we now have 20 petabytes of verified data, which means for the first time, basically, we have more verified than unverified data on Filecoin, which I think is a good indicator of the Phil Plus machine that is kind of kicking in and meeting its goal of verified data being something that's easily available to users. Total number of deals on Filecoin up to 1.77 million, and over 40 million NFTs stored on Filecoin, up from about 25 a month ago. So lots of activity, as you can see. And our highlights. Big one. As of Tuesday, so a little over 48 hours ago, we are on Filecoin Network v15. This is the OSNAP upgrade, which delivers snap deals. We'll be going into it more, I think, in the shipped section. But the one-line summary is the time to liveness for data on Filecoin has dropped from over 6 hours to well under an hour. This is over an 80% decrease. So the amount of time you have to wait before you want to store something on Filecoin, and it's provably on Filecoin, has dropped by about 80%. Needless to say, we're happy about that. Lotus and Force integration of the reference FVM is underway. Raul will be going into this in much more detail, but the bullet point I'll leave you with is that we are now syncing multiple months of mainnet state using the FVM in clients like Lotus, which is fantastic. Also work on planning out what the testing for the FVM and the first milestone is going to be has happened. And from the Bedrock team side of things, testing of the indexer nodes is underway with Source Provider X fellows, and I think the plan is for boost testing to start fairly soon as well. Challenges that I wanted to call out, these both really just help fit the same theme of wanting to move as quickly as we can while still being safe. We have a very, very good problem in Filecoin, which is that there's no shortage of ideas, whether that's cool stuff coming out of the FVM and the functionality it unlocks, or FIPS being authored and implemented by this point by folks from around the community, or the juggernaut of ideas that is the Protocol and Opportunities team with Anorth and Kuba. So lots of great ideas, and we do want to be shipping these things because we believe that there'll be massive improvements. But the Filecoin network is not where it was a month ago. It's much bigger. The ecosystem is much larger. The number of stakeholders that we require to coordinate across has gone up. And so managing to maintain that velocity is more of a challenge now, and is has been more of an issue recently. And I think that's not going to change in 2022. So we need a lot more coordination work is needed than before. Kind of in the same breath, efforts to, just because we have a lot of ideas, but testing and validation is no less important today than it was before. Over the next few months, and really all of 2022, there's plans to introduce a ton of new functionality. Introduce new risk areas when there are user-programmable contracts, elevate the importance of some things like the Rust actors, which was built by the ChainSafe team, to the heart of the Filecoin protocol itself, all of which requires a good amount of diligence to make sure these things work and work correctly. And we need to make sure that we're planning to include time for that testing and validation when we're scoping work out. And if we ever wind up in a position where implementation and integration is complete, but we just haven't finished the level of testing that we wanted, we're going to have to wait till we have that confidence. And just almost as a motivating example of that, in the new Prove Replica update method that we launched in Snapdeals and went live on mainnet on Tuesday, we have found a bug. We've publicly disclosed it. It's relatively minor, but a good example of we need to be testing the living hell out of everything we do before shipping.
Awesome, great. Moving on to our spotlights, please try and keep to a minute because we're a little short. First, as Ayush was mentioning, Filecoin Network 15.
I can keep this under a minute. Just wanted to talk about Snapdeals a bit more, and this is a celebratory slide, really. Recapping the motivation behind Snapdeals, the idea is we want people to be able to pledge storage on Filecoin today, even if they don't have useful data in it, and then be able to easily introduce useful data into that pledge storage. And Snapdeals makes this resource efficient and relatively fast, which is what we're happy about. And really, this is just thanks to Kuba and Luca for the research that led to the idea. The Phil Crypto team, Nima in particular, did a bunch of the work for the proofs implementation. Dragon and Jake, and a really few others for the trusted setup effort. The Lotus team for actors implementing the new method, getting the miner working, and everything else that we do around network upgrades. And Jennifer and Caitlin from the Filecoin Foundation for overall coordination. A couple other callouts in this upgrade. It was the first time we upgraded all of our sector infos. There are over 500 million sector infos on Filecoin, and we had to do that in the 30-second Filecoin block time. Stebalian came up with a cool design that we implemented and managed to get the job done. We also, besides Snapdeals, there was another FIP included in this upgrade to improve data cap management for the Phil Plus team. And thanks to Deep for authoring that and Jennifer for the implementation of that. And finally, a note that this will, if everything goes to plan, this will be the last time we have a purely Go-based spec factors upgrade of Filecoin, because V16 onwards will hopefully be FVM-based. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Speaking of
All right.
which, hand over to Raul.
Speaking of which, that's what I'm going to talk about. So the FEM team is delivering on-chain user programmability to the Filecoin Network by introducing a polyglot virtual machine that is powered by WASM. And the update for this month is basically that we're syncing mainnet up until Actors V6 inclusive with Lotus plus FEM. We are currently working on porting Actors V7 to the built-in Actors repo, which is this repo that Ayush was talking about, is the repo that is on path to being canonicalized as kind of like the one and only Actors implementation, and it's written in Rust and it compiles down to WASM. By the way, we spun out the Actors into this specific separate repo this week. We're currently publishing the crates. Stab is taking care of that. So we have a first V6 release. V7 is coming in the next days. We are, as I said, we're syncing mainnet up until V6, and the tipset validation times are looking pretty good. The baseline validation time by Lotus is 1.64 seconds average. What we are getting to with the FEM without fuel accounting is 1.7, and with fuel accounting, which is kind of like the new method for execution time metering and gas metering, is 2.09 average. There is still some room to optimize this, but even if we go live with these numbers, we do still need to run some tests and some saturation tests and so on. But even if we go live with these numbers, they are well within the parameters that we are taking into account for block timing. Now, core devs, another big news is that core devs approved the NV16 upgrade timeline. Tentative date for go live of the FEM M1 release is May the 3rd. We're debating on what the name of this network upgrade is going to be, but it's probably going to be an Icelandic reference and likely to be a food reference. So watch out for that. There were also 2 FIPs merged, and there's a 3rd FIP on the way, which introduces the gas accounting changes. Now, things that are in progress, as I said before, we're porting Actors V7 to built-in Actors using much of many of the contributions that Forrest has made. We're bug fixing those and testing them against mainnet now that OSNAP is finally live. We're also boosting the built-in Actors test coverage. This is super important to make safe. We want to move fast, but we also want to move safe, and we identified that there is a risk vector here. So we're definitely taking all the steps to mitigate it. We have a coordinated plan that involves several contributors across PL, including Vizo, Sen, who are leading the charge here. We've structured the effort, and there's going to be people like Alex and Kuba potentially coming in and joining this effort for specific bursts of time. Now we're also running the testnet plan. We just launched Caterpillar Net, and we're currently debugging some issues with it, but they probably seem to be related with the parameterization of that network more than the implementation itself. And we're also preparing internal code audits. Thanks a lot to a bunch of people that I mentioned across this, all over the slide: Jennifer, Yus, Vizo, Sen, Dragon, who just joined the team to help lead some areas, some very important key areas like audits, collabs, and other things. And Stab, of course, for doing a ton of the work regarding the mirroring mainnet and syncing to mainnet, bug fixing that.
Super exciting, and congratulations to the whole team on reaching M0. I know a big milestone, and we are, eyes on the prize of the next one already. Handing it off to A North for the recent set of awesome FIPs he has shipped.
Hi there. Yeah, the Protocol Opportunities team are working on the built-in actor protocol changes to support great programmability. Once the FVM allows the execution of contracts, we want those contracts to be able to interact with storage and produce storage markets and storage-related functionality, which requires a bunch of changes to how the existing built-in actors work. So 2 FIPs that are up there at the moment. One is to support actors as clients to the built-in storage market. Right now, one has to be an off-chain, a private key address to make a deal. But once we land this, we'll be able to support multi-sigs making deals. And then once the FVM enables contracts, the kind of things like repair contracts or automated replication, data DAOs, all that kind of cool stuff will be possible when actors can make deals. The next one is more of a prerequisite, a stepping stone towards larger re-architecture. but we're simplifying the pre-commit deposit calculation for all sectors so that it's a uniform value for all sectors, regardless of what content is going into them at the same time as sealing. Once we do this is a step towards decoupling the sort of sector storage and proofs part from marketplaces so that we can enable much more innovation in marketplaces in the future. And so towards that, there's a design proposal, not yet drafted up in a FIP, but a design proposal in public for how to re-architect the relationships between the built-in miner actor, the market actor, and the verified registry actor, so that we can support user-programmed market and deal contracts in the future. So the built-in storage market won't be the only way to make a deal on Filecoin. We'll be able to have bounty contracts and option contracts and aggregators and different markets that are on L2, and so they use much less gas, and be able to support features for sort of those deals, like extension of the deal and transfer of the deal and so on and so on. So this is sort of the building blocks that will enable the kind of programmability explosion in finance that we've seen on other blockchains. We want that same kind of explosion of ways of dealing with storage on Filecoin. So that last one's a bigger proposal. It'll take a bit more time to stabilize. And in the meantime, I'm expecting a proposal about improving the Filecoin Plus verified registry to come in first to make data cap more flexible and as another stepping stone to support for new markets.
Super exciting. Thank you to the whole Protocol Opportunities team for getting these out there, and very excited to see them equip all of the new FVM developers with lots of good hooks to build upon. Heading over to George.
Hi everyone. So this is a bit of a slightly different update, but the Consensus Web team met for the second time ever in February in Dubai. We had all of Consensus Web plus our academic advisors and Dragan attending, and well, plus a bunch of remote sessions, but it was extremely useful and extremely productive, more so than I ever expected, to be honest. And having everyone in one room and in a different environment, we managed to make huge progress on basically defining the directions for several of our projects. So it was Mate's first day at PL, so that's also why we organized the meeting. We already have a very concrete plan for Y3 now, Y3 being subnet consensus, which will probably be based on mirbft, well, not probably, actually be based on mirbft and a narwhal mempool. So we do have our plans there. We have our first concrete plan for actually shipping production deliverables. And so we are planning a public testnet for hierarchical consensus in Q4. A bunch of other things happened. Alfonso gave the first live stream demo from a Lebanese restaurant on our last night. So if you attended that mother of all demo days, that explains why there was noise on the background. But yeah, I mean, I could tell you about all of the things that we did, but I don't have to, because one of the things that we also decided was to go even more public with our work. So of course, we already have all of our projects, all of our roadmaps in public, but we decided to also make the recordings from our team week public. So they are on YouTube, on the Protocol Labs channel. And there is a 15-minute summary at the end called Outcomes. And that will tell you about all the things that happened there. In addition to that, we did move to the Filecoin Slack. So we're now in the Consensus channel, possibly to be renamed, but for now that's where we are. And yeah, and our GitHub issues now have a lot more details from talks and demos, lots of demos, to public meeting notes, to public notes for all of our meetings. That's what I mean. But yeah, if you want to hear more, really just watch the recording of the outcomes, and it will be way more than I could ever fit in 1 minute. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Handing over to Giannis for DRAND.
Hello. Long time no see for the DRAND team, but for a very good reason this time. We've been working on a big project for more than 5 months now, and with some great help from our friends at Zondax and great efforts from Nicholas, Will, and others. we've managed to develop 2 new exciting features for D-runs. One of them is the unchained randomness support that comes into D-runs. So starting from this right-hand side figure, which simplistically means that every time a new beacon is produced by the D-run network is no longer going to be linked to the previous one, which is the case right now. This enables a number of features, a number of new things. So messages can now be encrypted into the future. And as a result of that, D-run can become a mitigation to front-running attacks, can be used to mitigate front-running attacks, which have been and there still are kind of notorious in this space. Also because of that, and well, equally importantly, there is now support for multiple protocols running on the same network. So what this means in very simple terms is that while now randomness is produced every 30 seconds, as you know, and is consumed by Filecoin and other clients, now what we're going to be able to have is randomness produced in smaller time intervals. So if we say that randomness is now going to be produced in, say, every 5 seconds, then applications are going to be able to consume randomness every 5 seconds, but also every 10, every 15, 20, and multiples of that kind of base frequency. So as you understand, that opens the road to many more applications and systems to use D-runs. We have lots of interest from partners and other applications that build oracles based on D-runs. We are, of course, looking out for more, and we are hearing the requirements that our ecosystem partners are looking to integrate into their applications. So if you've got interest, get in touch. Read the blog post and very comprehensive FAQ document which details all of what I do not have time to say right now. But we've got more ideas. We've got new members joining the team, most notably Yolan, of course, and we're looking to hire more people. So if you're interested or you know someone who is interested, get in touch. And thank you very much.
Awesome. So exciting. Congratulations on the awesome milestone. Passing to Will for Network Indexer.
Yeah, so we had I guess, are well on the way of rolling out network indexing to the network. We had a couple more great milestones earlier this week. And most recently, the PR that's been sort of a long-standing one in Lotus finally merged. So Lotus Master now includes an index provider that will allow network indexers to get all of the SIDs that those providers are offering. So the production network indexer already has some hundreds of millions of SIDs, and that's growing. And that's thanks to a bunch of SPX testing that's been ongoing with some of our great early storage providers. We also are seeing a sustained query load of the Hydra boosters querying the store the index production node on behalf of IPFS clients and are keeping up with that load. And so we expect to see in the coming days and weeks additional adoption by storage providers and additional content flowing through. So we'll start to have a great service to be able to figure out who has what SIDs throughout the interplanetary stack. This has been a bunch of work over the last months by a bunch of people. So huge thanks to Andrew, Marco, Masi, and the broader Bedrock team of Arsh, Dirk, Anton, Jacob, David, Brenda, and then all of the stewardship we've had from Lotus and SPX testing, along with from IPFS and our interaction with Nitro as well. So a bunch of people have gone into getting this to where it is. And now it's about a bunch of operational stuff to get it out the rest of the way. But yay.
Woohoo! Super exciting. Great to see IPFS and Filecoin more tightly interoperating with each other. Handing over to Patrick for Saturn and Station.
Hello. Yeah, so as part of the Filecoin retrieval market workstream, we kicked off an initiative called Saturn this year. So yeah, firstly, feel free to scan the QR code in the middle to find out more about Saturn in your own time. But yeah, what's Saturn? It is a blazing fast decentralized CDN for serving IPLD data to browsers and other clients. But that's not all. By leveraging the properties of content addressing and peer-to-peer networks, we hope Saturn will be able to outperform traditional CDNs in certain regards, whilst also rewarding anyone who would like to contribute to the network. So yeah, Saturn is a decentralized CDN, and folks can join the network and run a point of presence in the network. And these point of presence nodes are called stations. So that takes us up to top right, all these kind of blue dots surrounding the Saturn image in the middle. Station operator Saturn, yeah, Saturn. Sorry, need to say it more clearly, Raoul. Station operators can earn Filecoin for contributing their resources to the network without the hardware cost and expertise needed to be a Filecoin storage provider. So to make things super easy for these users, Station is going to be a desktop app that operators can download, spin up, and start earning Filecoin for serving retrievals, all while interacting with a nice GUI. Yeah, I'd like to say actually at this point, the Saturn is going to be one of many retrieval networks or DCDNs emerging around Filecoin and IPFS. There are others like Myel, Titan Ultra, Meson, and Media also making amazing progress in this space. And I envisage a landscape where all of these networks see a big uptake optimized for slightly different use cases or crypto-economic business models. And in particular, the Myel team, who we work very closely with, have made amazing progress in this space. The first Saturn milestone is to launch a retrieval network that supports end-to-end NFT media file retrievals from the top NFT marketplaces, whilst rewarding those who are participating as station operators. And beyond the initial launch, we intend to support a wider variety of media types and use cases beyond just NFT media, while scaling up the network to many more station operators. And finally, why is Saturn going to be so good? Alongside folks working on this from EngRes, we're also working with some of the best from the WebRTC and peer-to-peer CDN business, who will be putting all their expertise into making Saturn the fastest, most reliable Web3 CDN out there. So yeah, that's all. And please reach out if you want to find out more about Saturn.
Super exciting. Can't wait to run this on my laptop. It'll be great. Handing over to Nemo for proofs.
Greetings. So now that Snapfield is officially running on mainnet, what's happening in proofs? So the big one is Halo 2. You may have heard about it before. We've been looking into it for quite a while now. And just to note, it is in part a collaboration with the Zcash folks. The scope of the work is large. In short, we intend to replace all of our Grok 16-based proofs to this new Halo 2 proving system. And there's two main reasons why we want to do this. First is to help eliminate trusted setups. So we just came out of our second trusted setup for Snapfields. And anyone that was paying attention should have noted that it takes a while to find the participants, coordinate, run it, validate it. And it requires it's a pretty big community effort, really. And the biggest practical downside of what we have in our current proof system is anytime we want to do an upgrade to a circuit, it's going to require a new trusted setup. And arguably this could slow down protocol upgrades. I mean, we're talking generally 4 to 8 weeks to complete a trusted setup. And it's not just the amount of time, of course, there's a lot of challenges along the way. So ideally, we could just remove that whole process and where we could actually just spend more time focusing on the actual upgrades instead of demonstrating trust, I guess, to the world. And the second main benefit, of course, of Halo 2 is that it's going to allow us in the future to have more potential to address on-chain scalability, and particularly with regards to the size of the proofs on chains. Halo 2 has a recursive property in their proving system, and we will figure out a way, or it allows us to figure out a way to improve our constructions generally. Other things going on in proofs, we're team building here. So Phil Crypto is growing. This year started off with Jake, myself, and Volker, and at the moment we have a new member, Eduardo, and we officially have our first new hire, Artem. And I'm looking forward to giving you more updates about everyone and everything in the future.
Sounds great. Congrats on the growth. And finally, handing over to Hannah for GraphSync 2.0.
Hey everyone. For those who don't know, over the past few months, there's been a project called Lightning where we've been doing a lot of stability improvements and other types of reliability for our data transfer protocols. And as part of that, we have been undertaking a large effort to essentially rewrite the core network protocol of GraphSync to set us up for the future. It is called GraphSync 2.0. It does not necessarily mean that the entire thing has been thrown out and rewritten. Mostly we have rewritten the protocol format, which is now using CBOR instead of protobuf. We are going to be shipping it in a completely backwards compatible form, so do not worry, your stuff will not break tomorrow. If the key part about GraphSync 2.0 is that it really unlocks some future improvements. We've done some things that seem trivial, but which matter a lot for the future, like changing our ID types to UIDs and a few other things like that. The one other core element that we shipped is a rewritten and much more robust and super secure data verification library to handle incoming GraphSync responses and make sure that you're getting the data you asked for. It's a really overall GraphSync has gotten a lot of polish in the last 3 months, and it's a much more friendly repo. And I just want to briefly shout out Dan, who's now back on the IPLD team, but has been critical in shipping improvements around IPLD in order for us to convert the protocol to CBOR, and also for sure the lightning rod of this project, Rod Back, who's written probably the most amount of code that is going out there. So yes, thank you very much for all of the work that both of them have done. So that's all.
Super exciting. Cool. We now have a little bit of time for deep dives, starting with grants and DGM. Pooja.
Awesome. So I was going to start a little bit with just kind of a reminder of what the network funding work streams across the PL network have been over the last few months, because there's a bunch of really exciting work here. But in general, all of these work streams are generally trying to accomplish this goal of improving the impact of public goods or the commons, projects that are building really useful resources for our communities and networks, but that don't necessarily have their own self-sustaining revenue or business models. And the goal of this stream of efforts is to improve the overall impact of these sorts of projects by bringing together funders, builders, and lots of different experiments with different kinds of tools to fund impactful work. If you go to the next slide. So some of the efforts that you've probably heard about a number of these over the last few weeks. I'll just quickly talk about a few of them, and then most of the rest of this deep dive is going to be focused on the last one, which is grants. But one of the big ones that was sort of announced like a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago at this point, is this idea of blue funds. And blue funds are basically thesis-driven capital allocation structures. So really you can think of it as a fund. They will be separate entities that have funds allocated to them. And these are driven by people within the network who have certain theses about what would really impactful projects in the network be. And these like funders can apply for a certain capital pool that they can then allocate to different projects using a number of different mechanisms. So they can use grants and bounties, they can use impact evaluators, they can use whatever, in the broad world now of public goods funding, there are so many different experiments that are being run. So funders that are sort of like the managers basically for these specific blue funds can use a number of these different mechanisms in order to promote a particular thesis that they think will drive a lot of impact within the PL network. So that's one effort that was recently kicked off. There in parallel have been a number of experiments around this category that we've been calling impact evaluators, which are basically some form of systematic mechanism that is used to retroactively look at a number of different projects, gauge their impact against either maybe a particular metric like a KPI or some other more arbitrary objective. And then ultimately, after this assessment of impact is conducted, allocating funding to projects. And so there are a number of different experiments that the network funding team has been running in this area. These include something that we've been calling the SQUI, which is, I believe what Evan's been calling it, which is it stands for Subjective Quantification Impact Evaluator. And it's like the high level idea is pretty simple. It's, having people within the network rate a number of different projects based on their estimate of how impactful those projects were. There's also a quadratic voting based retroactive funding experiment that we're about to start. And then there is also, you can sort of think of Slingshot in a way as kind of an impact evaluator as well, which is looking at sort of the relative contributions of a number of different groups in our ecosystem towards this KPI, which is maximizing the amount of useful data onboarded onto the network. So that is, one sort of more historical example of a KPI-based impact evaluator, but there is also a new experiment that Matt Froelich recently launched, which is focused on seeing if we can incentivize the improvement of documentation quality with different projects within the PL network. So there are a number of really interesting experiments being run there. And then in addition, there is a bunch of work that the team is doing to increase our thought leadership in this space. So actually right now, there is another event which is going on in parallel, which is called Funding the Commons. And we ran a version of this last November. So this is it was a really successful event. And so we're doing another one. The talks will also continue tomorrow. So definitely recommend if you're interested in public goods funding, folks should check that out. There's also a hub, kind of like a portal for knowledge sharing that the team is creating, which is at fundingthecommons.hub.io. And there's a Discord community and so on. So a lot there to try to build a community around this set of efforts. And lastly, is this sort of area of funding, which I think we all are generally familiar with the idea of grants. I'll talk a little bit more specifically about what types of grants we're interested in on the network funding side, if we can go to the next slide. So so there are many, many different kinds of grants in the PL network and beyond. Obviously, grants are kind of a really common thing in our space. So specifically, when we talk about network funding grants, what we're talking about here are directed grants. So these are projects or just initiatives where we have some opinion of what a successful outcome looks like, either because it's a particular goal or KPI that we think is important for the network overall, or it is like a specific, we've done some thought work thinking about what are going to be really useful projects and what are the requirements that the project needs to meet in order to be successful. So it's like specific work, or it's, generally we think it would be useful to have a startup or some sort of project spin up in a particular space, but we don't really know what the shape of the solution is. But there is some directed outcome that we're looking for, which is contrasted to a lot of the grants that we do offer today, which are more open grants. So, people coming to us with ideas for things that they would like us to fund, and then we evaluate based on their proposal. So here we're mostly talking about directed grants. Next slide, please. And so with our efforts around how do we really scale up the why do we care about this, right? Why are we really making an investment in this set of efforts? It's because we think that this is kind of a useful mechanism to achieve a few key goals. First, bringing new people into our ecosystem and also possibly into Web3 as a space overall. We see this as potentially an opportunity to do a lot more of an efficient matchmaking process between the available work that exists within our ecosystem and the potential latent talent that exists that is not currently allocated to work within our ecosystem. And then lastly, wanting to scale the overall impact that we can have within the PLN. Next slide. So far what we've done along this, in this bubble of directed grants. So we launched a platform, which the working name is DGM. It's at dgm.xyz, stands for Decentralized Grants Marketplace. And this is just really intended, it's pretty simple today, but really intended to be a home where funders like Protocol Labs and Starfleet, Outer Core, et cetera, and all of the various teams within the PLN more broadly can post projects that they want people to work on. And it's also a place where workers can discover and apply for projects. So we launched that. We launched it with an initial set of grants. So yeah, next slide, please. So we launched with an initial set of grants, which are for projects that are kind of interesting because normally, again, it's these directed grants. These are projects that are on our core roadmap in a sense, if you think of the roadmap as overall, what do the IPFS and Filecoin ecosystems more broadly need to be really successful in 2022, not necessarily what the set of Starfleet or EngRes or Addercore teams or et cetera are working on. And so there was an initial set of grants that we launched with, and it's been really, really awesome to see the response here, because every single one of these grants has interest from legitimate teams, and every single, like the majority of the teams, I think we have a couple of applications from folks that are already in our ecosystem, but the majority of applications are from people that we've never worked with before. And then on the next slide, the last thing too is just, sort of iterating on how do we, like, for a lot of these types of projects, there's a huge amount of process involved, a lot of like legal and finance approvals and things like that. So we're trying to iterate on the process here so that it's as lightweight as possible for everyone involved, so that, when our teams want to put work out there, it's like really lightweight for us too, and we don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about anything more than just like what's the actual work that we're trying to get done. I think this is the last slide. Yeah, so the last thing is, just more, definitely planning on posting more grants. We're looking to hire into the team. There's a lot of like interesting work we're doing to think about what are novel like mechanisms that we can use to incentivize some of the behavior that we think is really important here. So ongoing maintenance of the projects that are being funded. How do we, like think about things like funder escrow and increasing reputation of the system overall, things like that. And then a bunch of just like new features for this platform to make it really robust in attracting new talent into our world. And if you have ideas for new grants that you want to sort of trial with kind of in this way, or you're just interested in brainstorming on any of these ideas, would love to chat with people on our team. So please do reach out. Thank you.
Awesome. Handing it off to David Aronchick for compute over data.
You got it.
I'll try and keep it fast.
I will do it super fast. So as you may know, we have an enormous amount of data on our network, 38 petabytes, as you saw earlier in the thing, and it just keeps growing. But the first thing people ask is like, great, I have this data out there. What can I do with it? Do I have to move it around? Do I have to download the entire thing in order to do anything interesting? This is something that data engineers have been doing for many years, and it's extremely costly. Data is almost always not in its final form. Most of the time, people don't need all the data. A lot of times they'll just download it to a temporary file and so on, which ends up costing enormous amounts of egress and other things like that. So all of that is not great. Plus, we have the data stored on these super high value machines that are, mostly idle, for better or worse. Next slide, please. So when you look at, though, the data pipelines that are out there today, and you look at what enterprises and data scientists are actually doing, they're feeling this pain already, right? Most of the time, they're having a lot of pain around managing, spinning up clusters, so on and so forth. You can see there, 39% is just big data management. And when you look at the life of a data scientist today, you're talking about more than 50%, in this case, it's, more than 60% of their time is spent just wrangling data sets and things like that. And this is something we can help with. Next slide, please. So the question is, can we help improve these data pipelines with as little change as possible to the data things they're doing today? If we ask them to do a new tool or anything, like spin up a new cluster or anything like that, that is a nightmare. So let's try and get there. Can we do it? The answer is, of course, yes. And the way we're going to do that is with a Project Bacalhau. Next slide, please. So Project Bacalhau. Bacalhau means COD in Portuguese, compute over data, COD. See, there's our little joke. Logo's still TBD. We're still working on that, but you can see we've got a little fish and it's got things coming out the other side, so we're very excited. So the net of this entire project is make data more useful in place, where you're storing it today, using the existing compute, et cetera, et cetera. We want to support common tooling. So whatever you have today, like Linux command line, Python, don't care. We want to enable that. We want to do it with idle time. A lot of the time, they don't care when the data is engineered, as long as it's done within whatever, some set amount of time. And best of all, we're going to re-upload the results of this back to IPFS and Filecoin, making that more useful. The proof of concept is already live. The code that you see there, you can execute it today if you'd like. It basically, you can see you add a 10 gigabyte CSV, you submit your job to this network stack that you've spun up. In this case, it just searches for using SED, a command line tool that virtually every data scientist in the world uses, and then you fetch the results. Presto, you're done. And you're able to download this, and it's oftentimes much, much smaller. We're also having a Compute Over Data Summit in April. That's April 5th through 7th in Paris. If you're in the neighborhood, please come by. And our goal is to launch by this summer. We've made enormous progress, much faster than I had hoped. And we're incredibly excited. So if you'd like to come join, you can see there, the repos out there, the channels out there, we would love to have you.
Awesome. So excited to see this getting off the ground. We're short on time, so we're just going to do very top level team updates, starting with NetOps. What's one thing to highlight or call out, Sid?
A key call out is a network upgrade of all the fill infra mainnet. Mainnet infra has been upgraded, and partnering with the Filecoin Foundation to create a proposal to improve Lotus build pipelines, essentially. So those were the two key highlights I would like to mention, and of course, ongoing work on the GitOps side to build more self-service, continuous deployment, and Kubernetes management. So yeah, those are the key highlights I would like to take away from here.
Perfect, thank you. We have two groups from ResDev that we're highlighting today. First, CryptoNet Lab with Nicola. Top highlight.
Hey everyone, there's a lot going on. And so maybe the highlight is there are 3 free proposals. Go and look at the FIP repo and comment them. They were discussed. We're starting 2 new projects for storage metrics and data retrievability. And we're looking for feedback on these ideas and auditors and early network members on those. And for those that don't know, CryptoNet, we have this CNL notebook where we write ideas as they come. And if you want to have alpha on Filecoin new protocol ideas, that's where it is.
Gotta get that alpha. Awesome. And Crypto Econ Lab.
Okay, hey everyone, this is Alex Terrazas. I'll just highlight that we have been working on project management so that we can get all of these protocol change proposals into a system with a set date for analysis and review. We're having regular meetings, so we're really working hard at revamping that entire process. And we have used that now to review 14 protocol change proposals in the first couple of weeks here. Some of those have to go cycling back for more analysis, but we keep everybody in the loop with this, and we're able to keep track of our output, and we're hoping to make some big changes here. And I think this is the only way we can really scale our impact. Yes, we can hire more and we can scale our work, but scaling our impact will definitely require us to formalize some of these processes. Just one last highlight. I was hired a couple of months ago. We've recently hired Tom Mellon, and we have 2 new starts coming up in April and May. And so I think we'll be able to get to a lot of these issues and do a good job with them. Thank you.
Nice. Handing off to D. Choi for Nitro. Might have lost him to another meeting, in which case probably the thing to highlight is the phenomenal growth that NFT.storage continues to see, especially recent merged PR to Metaplex. So great to see additional adoption for NFT.storage landing into the Solana ecosystem. And I know there's a lot of other exciting stuff around other projects that they're taking on with the NFT.storage gateway that I'm sure we'll hear more from them on soon. And Jacob on Bedrock.
I'll cover for Bedrock. The bigger highlight for Bedrock is continuous rolling out of Boost, has fully integrated in GoFund markets, moving into full acceptance testing with Estuary. Alpha release is coming in the next couple of weeks and on track to do initial launch in April publicly. And then, as we mentioned, indexing work is doing great. Ingestion rate has been amazing, 2,500 sits per second, and more than 270 million multi-hashes ingested so far.
So exciting. Awesome. Well, thank you, teams, for the updates. Hopefully everyone got a great index and is super excited about all the things that are coming. Thank you, everyone, for spending time sharing all of the awesome updates. Pretty much all these teams are looking for awesome new contributors. So if you see something that tickles your fancy, please come and reach out to us, dive in on Notion, or jump into channels in IPFS Discord or Filecoin Slack where we're doing our work. We're happy to ramp up new folks who want to contribute as well. So thank you so much and have an awesome rest of your day.